He entered the public baths alive, and he came out dead without a drop of blood. No screaming, no witnesses, no trace. But hours earlier, he had made the mistake of threatening to reveal Senate secrets. He was a powerful man, and yet he was erased like a name on wet parchment. This was no coincidence. That was a message. In Rome, all it took was a cross look, a piece of badly kept information, a false step, and his fate was sealed in the underworld. Behind the marble columns and solemn speeches, there was a Rome that preferred the silent blade to the public clash, a city where the alleys had ears and the silence kill. And you, could you survive in a place where even death was strategically calculated? You know the Rome of statues, eloquent speeches and generals covered in glory, but forget all that, because the Rome you're going to see now isn't in the history books. It is in the dimly lit alleys where coins changed hands and life was measured in silence. Here, gold bought silence and death. There was a parallel Rome, invisible to the eyes of the people, but felt by those who dared to get too close to power. A city where betrayals were toasted with poisoned wine, and the bodies of enemies disappeared without fanfare. This is the Rome that made pacts at midnight, the Roma that didn't scream, just act. And if you think that the empire was built only with military force, it is because he has not yet known the contract signed with blood. We'll be part of this complete journey through the shadows of history. Leave your like if you want more hidden truths like this to come to light. And if you're here, it's because you're not just any spectator. You are one of the few who see what others ignore. So prove it now. Subscribe to the channel, activate the bell, and enter with us into the secret corridors of the Rome that killed in silence. They did not wear uniforms. They did not march in legions. They had no glory, but they came at a price. And whoever paid that price could eliminate an enemy without arousing suspicion. In the heart of the Republic, there was a secret market of death on demand. Some were former soldiers who knew how to cut a throat without leaving marks. Others, slaves trained in absolute silence, prepared to kill and disappear. And there were even rumors that certain members of the Praetorian Guard themselves were doing dirty work on the outside at the behest of senators who did not want to get their hands dirty. No written law directly prohibited these silent executions, and even if there were, who would dare to investigate? The question that hung in the air was always the same: who would be next? Because in Rome, when the sword was not enough, the hidden dagger did the job, and who hired was never discovered. Killing with a blade was barbarian. The Roman elite preferred more elegant, a toast among friends, a sip of imported wine, a hearty supper, and hours later, the body was already lifeless. No sign of a struggle, no alarm sound, just another natural death among the powerful. But behind the sweet taste of the wine, something much more bitter was hidden. Arsenic, hemlock, belladonna. Poisons brought by Greek traders or prepared in secret by slave alchemists. It was impossible to trace. What's more, the poisons themselves were personalized, created to kill slowly or quickly, according to the desire of the mastermind. Rome did not need wars to eliminate its enemies. A dinner was enough. And you, invited to a Roman party, would you dare to toast? Think of a place where everyone is naked, defenseless, immersed in steam. No armor, no weapons, just sweaty bodies, whispered conversations, and attentive eyes. Roman public baths, veritable palaces of marble and hot water, hid more than relaxation. They hid traps, a perfect place for assassinations. The steam made it difficult to see, the screams were muffled, and the constant stream of people masked any suspicious movement. Many entered, and they did not leave. A fainting, a sudden illness, or a thin blade between the ribs. No one could prove it. There were reports of politicians murdered in the thermal triclinium, with their bodies dragged while everyone continued to pretend not to see. In Rome, even the water boiled with tension. And when you lay down to relax, maybe it was just when someone else was ready to act. It wasn't always for politics. Sometimes it was out of love, or out of jealousy, or for money. In Rome, contract killing was a tool, and the masterminds came from all corners of society. Senators eliminated rivals to rise to power. Wives had unfaithful husbands killed. Merchants got rid of competitors. Generals silenced soldiers who knew too much. There was no single profile. There was only the reason and gold. Some hired middlemen, others used trusted slaves, and there were even rumors that certain names whispered in alleys guaranteed discreet and accurate results. The most wicked. Sometimes the killer had been by the victim's side for years, as a servant, friend, or bodyguard. In Rome, the real danger did not come from outside. He was smiling next to her, and he waited for the right time. In Rome, the real power was not in killing, but in making it seem that nothing happened. Each silent murder was followed by an even more meticulous operation, that of erasing the footprints. Generous bribes kept their mouths shut. Slaves who saw too much, they disappeared. Compromising documents, burned. And when necessary, the investigators themselves were replaced by men loyal to the system. There were scribes who falsified records, doctors who attested to natural deaths, and judges who did not even dare to ask questions. It was an invisible web, supported by gold and fear. Rome's elite did not need to fear justice. It was justice. Silence was bought. And if that wasn't enough, it was imposed. That is why so many crimes have disappeared like dust in the wind. Because in Rome, truth existed only as far as power allowed it to breathe. Germanicus, beloved heir of the people, dies young and suddenly after a journey to the east. Coincidence? Or poison served by order of Tiberius? Sulla, the dictator who killed many, died a natural death, but with symptoms reminiscent of poisoning. Claudius, one of Rome's most controversial men, was killed under strange circumstances, and anyone who investigated disappeared. And Catiline, a rebel, yes, but perhaps someone who knew too much. The truth is, behind every famous name, there were shadows. Witnesses disappeared, official versions changed, and the culprits, they were never found. They were deaths without evidence, but with all the signs of something much bigger. The whispers that circulated in the alleys of Rome said what the books do not. The empire was not only built with glory, but with blood hidden under the stones. They say that Rome was the pinnacle of civilization. But what is a civilization where gold rules more than justice? Where truth is stifled by fear and power is worth more than life? Was Rome really an example of progress, or just a well-constructed mask? How many crimes have been silenced with wine? How many voices have disappeared in the fog of the baths? How many innocents have been discarded like broken tools? The elite smiled in public, but he killed in the dark. And the people applauded, unaware that their heroes were also the greatest murderers of the empire. The question that remains is not only about Rome, it's about today. How much of this still exists disguised as civility? And could you realize it if you were living in the midst of it? If you've made it this far, it is because it also smelled the smoke that Rome tried to hide for centuries. But that's just the surface. In the next episodes of Hidden Crimes of Rome, we will dive even deeper. We will meet the masters of poison, the spies infiltrated the palaces, and the public executions that hid private conspiracies. Let's reveal the faces behind the masks, the names that disappeared from the records, but not of history. So if this dark side of eternal Rome has called you, don't ignore it. Sign up now, activate the bell, and get ready. Because when the curtain falls, what remains? It is the blood on the stones. And Rome, the real Rome, is just beginning to speak. You have just received a truth that most have never heard. While so many still see Rome as an empire of marble and glory, you now know what lurked in the shadows. And that transforms you. If this content has opened your eyes, then reciprocate this delivery with a simple gesture. Leave your like. This shows that this forgotten side of history was worth revealing. And sign up now, because each new episode of this series goes deeper, and those who walk with the truth from the beginning never see the world the same way again.